So we have another very interesting Q bounty question. How will the Democrats try and cheat progressives or outsiders in the 2020 Democratic primary election? Well, you asked the right guy, and today we're going to talk about it. Thanks for watching. So we had an anonymous question from Q Bounty about, well, how will the Democrats try and cheat like they did in 2016? And in case you were wondering who is qualified to tell you about that, well, I am that guy. We did bring the information about the Hillary Clinton Victory Fund to the forefront. That was us. And, you know, started the DNC fraud lawsuit. That was us too. Yeah. So trust me, we're pretty well versed in the art of Democrat cheating at this network here. So there are a lot of different ways that they will rig the election, right? I think one of the most obvious ways, but the way that doesn't really get discussed enough, even still, so they'll do it through the media. They do it through suppression, misdirection, and misinformation. As we have seen throughout the election, I think that Bernie Sanders has been really the front runner since he announced. And he hasn't gotten the same type of coverage that a Joe Biden nor has he had the same type of protective coverage that Joe Biden has. I would say that the media has, for the most part, caped for Joe Biden at every single opportunity. And they disparage Bernie, and if they're not disparaging him, then they silence him. Let's look at another candidate like Tulsi Gabbard. The media outright smeared her, right? Called her a Russian asset. When they're not talking about her, or when they don't talk about her, but when they finally do talk about her, she's the most obscene and disgusting ways. And that actually does work to a degree, right? Tulsi is not necessarily as well liked by a lot of the mainstream, well-established, lifelong Democrats as even Bernie Sanders, because Bernie went through a different type of scrutiny in 2016, which is, it was a scrutiny of silence. They didn't even give him any coverage until basically he won the Iowa primary election. So we can look at Andrew Yang and Marianne Williamson. They went through similar things. And to be honest, some people are like, well, that's not rigging by the Democrats. Oh, but it is. Because we learned from the WikiLeaks that CNN and MSNBC and the like, they work side by side, hand in hand with the Democratic National Committee. But that is the Democrats attempting to put the thumb on the scale. Okay? So that's just one way they rigged. Another way they rigged is through the debates, right? This is why I said the other day that debates and town halls, I should say. Everything about this Democratic primary debate process this year has been corrupt. Whether you're talking about the amount of time given, the fact that it seemed like they only let certain candidates on stage only to get them in a gotcha scenario, and they were still trying to keep them off stage, but they gave them an opportunity to get on stage, and then when they finally did ask them a question, it was a gotcha question. Andrew Yang got very little time to speak. Marianne Williamson got very little time to speak. Tulsi Gabbard got very little time to speak, and although Bernie Sanders did get a little more than them, for a front runner, he did not get as much time to speak as he should have. Once again, it gives the air of, well, he's not aggressive. He doesn't have much to say. If he was as important as his numbers say they are, then they would give him more time to speak. He must just not be that important, etc., etc., etc. That's a way to get people who may not pay attention that often or have been too sucked into the conditioning of the Democrats and the media. That's who they're going after when they try to do that. The boomers, if you will, which is the primary audience of a CNN or an MSNBC, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So the general coverage, that's one way. And it's an effective way because that's the way they stopped black people from figuring out who Bernie Sanders was in 2016. I was there doing all of it. A lot of people didn't even know he was running until it was too late. And they went back and said, wow, if I would have known who Bernie Sanders was then, like I do now, I would have voted for him. So that's just one way they do it. Another way. So there are different ways they do it depending on the type of primary it is. It is much easier to rig an election in a closed primary state than it is in an open primary state, which is why it was pretty clear. Oh, it's also a little bit harder to rig caucuses too, but not in the case of of Iowa and Nevada, and I'll explain that in a second. But even with open primary states, you saw Bernie basically obliterated Hillary in almost every single open and semi-open primary state, but Hillary was able to take it home because of rigging in the closed primary states. Now, let's observe the closed primary states. If you look at New York, that let us know that the Democrats have control over their registrations, and if you are a registered Democrat, they can just switch registration like that, moment's notice. They did the same thing in Arizona. How would they be able to tell which Democrat's a good Democrat, which Democrat, a good Democrat, and which Democrats are for somebody like a Bernie Sanders or a Tulsi Gabbard or Andrew Yang? Well, it's not hard. Just figure out who recently registered, and then just hedge your bets. What do I mean by that? If if Bernie Sanders just had a rally in New York, right? It's really easy for me to tell that you registered 2 days after that rally to vote for him in the Democratic primary in New York. You're not voting for Hillary Clinton, right? So I just switch your registration. In New York, for example, you don't get to vote. In California, you get to vote, but they'll hand you a provisional ballot and that shit will get thrown out, as many, many lawsuits have proven. So they'll switch your registration. They'll drop you from the registration rolls. These are all tactics. I remember one time in Arizona, they dropped it was like 1 million people from the voter rolls in Arizona. And almost every single one of them were potential Bernie Sanders voters. Yep. So that's another way they'll do it. The provisional ballots is a big thing. So if you're in a place like LA or California, where you can be no party preference and vote the day of, but if you do that, they're going to give you a provisional ballot. They're going to throw your ballot away. I don't know how else to tell you that. The Democrats are going to throw your ballots away. Do not take a provisional ballot. Do not take a provisional ballot. Don't take it. Don't do a mail-in ballot. Don't do any type of ballot like that. Because here's what's going to happen. They're going to... So, for example, we can look at the race between Nancy Pelosi, Shahid Buttar, and who else was the other? I want to say that was Jaffe's race. I want to say that was Stephen Jaffe's race. California in the jungle primary of 2018. Out the gate, people. Out the gate. Out the gate. They were saying that almost every single early primary and mail-in paper ballot vote went to Nancy Pelosi. Almost exclusively. That clearly is not even close to being likely. People went to mail in. It's not how it works. But that's another way they use the rig to price. So in addition to the provisional ballots, don't take one. Don't mail it in if you can help it. If you got to drive there, if you got to fly there, go do it. Go vote in person. Don't take a provisional ballot. Don't do a mail-in ballot. That's another way they rig. And we can look for the mail-in ballots. We can look at another example in New York where they did, what was her name? Oh my goodness. The young woman running for DA in Queens. She won. She won the election, people. She won by a wide, wide margin. Except for they're like, oh, our bad. We forgot to count mail-in ballots. Our bad. And let's count these really quick. Oh, almost all of them went exclusively to the establishment's pick. Even though she got obliterated in the primary by the voter, by the voting machine. Or excuse me, it's verified paper ballots, and then they put them through the machine. And even that, once again, she got obliterated. She got obliterated. And then guess what happened? Those mail-in ballots came in, and once again, surprise, surprise, they all went to her. So if you can help it, don't mail your ballot in. Go in person if you can help it. And if you go in person, they try and give you a provisional ballot. No. We can look at the election in New York for the gubernatorial race, where Andrew Cuomo benefited from everybody getting dropped from the voter rolls. Everybody. That's why it's important for you to constantly check, and recheck if you're registered, if you're in a closed primary state. They will drop your ass. They will. And I can't remember who he was running. It was the woman from Sex and the City who was very popular, got endorsed by Our Revolution, very progressive candidate. They dropped so many people from the voter rolls. You had celebrities like, what the I've been registered here my entire life. Celebrities talking about being dropped from the voter roll because they knew that Andrew Cuomo was being given a run for his money, and so they couldn't have that happen. They couldn't take the chance. So there are people, and then of course, instead of demanding that a recount took place and allowing people to re-register, they registered the elections and people were complicit and said, get behind Cuomo. You can't allow that. Can't allow that. Now we can look at the Iowa caucus. The Iowa caucus and the Nevada caucus are going to have a very unique way of being rigged this time. Before they rigged it with a coin flip to make it look like Hillary and Bernie tied, but that was not the case. Because, I mean, it just didn't happen, right? I had a feeling before the elections had even proceeded that it didn't happen. But then if we look at the caucus states subsequently, after that Iowa caucus and the Nevada caucus, we found out, one, that Bernie did win the Nevada caucus. Two, we found out that Bernie is a caucus machine. He almost wins every caucus. Not by a little bit either. Which made it all the more suspicious that like 6 or 7 caucuses were decided by a coin flip, which is the first time in history that has ever happened. So they'll try and rig the Iowa caucus because of how much momentum can come out of the Iowa caucus. With that being said, now you can just call in. Hey, calling to vote for so-and-so. Hey, calling to vote for such and such. Hey, you can go online too. Because we all know nobody ever rigs the elections through a computer. Nobody ever does that. Nobody ever does that, right? That's what they do, though. That's what they do. Now, there are some states that get it right. New Hampshire is a great state. That's how you really, if you want to tell the pulse of a race, look at states like New Hampshire. Look at states like Wisconsin, another state that Bernie obliterated Hillary in. Hawaii has a pretty decent election integrity history, even though I think they're closed primary. I can't remember. Washington has I remember we interviewed Josh, who's running for Congress out there in Washington, and we feel like he has a pretty damn good chance to win. And the reason why is because it's a closed primary state, but their election security is so significant. Like it's a game changer. That's a really good state. Another state, Colorado, I believe has really good election integrity. There's a few states out there that are just that have a really, really good track record on making sure that the people's voices are heard. But the closed primary states at large are not those states, and that's why they're closed primary states. Even the California primary last election in 2016, it was a big deal because it was a quote unquote closed primary state, but it's against California's constitution to have a closed primary. Yeah, it was. So that's why they have a jungle primary. If they're not in the like presidential primary race, then they're like the midterms, they do jungle primaries, and they're supposed to do jungle primaries for the California race as well, but they don't. They separate it. Like in the jungle primary, Democrats and Republicans are running in the exact same race. That is not how it goes in the California Democratic primary, and even though it's not supposed to be that way. So in other words, what I'm saying to you people is that Trump should be included in I know it sounds crazy to think about, but Trump should be included as in every single California Democratic primary poll, because otherwise it is a closed primary, because that's essentially what it is. And that is unlawful. These are facts. You have that, and then you have a runoff in which Trump, because that, I mean, I know it sounds crazy to think about, but that's how it's supposed to be ran, because that's how it's run in 2018. But now they got a way around that, like I was speaking about earlier. Now they give you provisional ballots if you're no party preference. And what do we say? What's the rule about provisional ballots? I don't want a provisional ballot. I want to vote. I want you to throw my vote away. I want to vote. So, media rigging, debate rigging. Oh, also online. They have troll farms. David Brock is the king of troll farms. They had an organization called Share Blue, where they literally would plant trolls. And you can see oftentimes these trolls, they start in either 2009, right? That's when they first came in. If you see Twitter accounts that have only tweeted 300 times since 2009, but they're highly political accounts, it's probably one of those. The other time was 2012, if they start then, 2016, and then, of course, in 2019 or 2020. Oftentimes, those are bot accounts. And they're just meant to chastise people and attack people. In fact, one organization got caught doing this for Doug Jones out there in Alabama. And I wish I could remember what the name of the organization was called, but they got banned from Facebook for doing this. They remember how there was that lie that was told that Russia was planting trolls for Donald Trump. Turns out it wasn't Russia; it was a Democratic Party consultant that was doing it. They were creating Russian, quote unquote, Russian bots, making it seem like it was from the Republican Party and seem like it was from Russia, but they were just using that to blame the Republicans so that Doug Jones could then benefit from it. The Democrat. So that was the exact same tactic they used for Hillary Clinton in 2016. It just did not work into their favor. But they've been using that lie to push every single conspiracy theory that they've been pushing for the last 3 years. So online, don't believe the hype. Don't believe everything you see. Don't believe everything you read. Hillary was not as popular as they pretended she was she? Kamala wasn't as popular as they pretended she was. We found out she had a bunch of bots. We exposed that story. Warren is not as popular as she pretended she was. Even Buttigieg is not as popular as they were pretending he was. Probably more popular than I would say Warren. But still, they use these bot accounts to try and manufacture this popularity that is not authentic and not real. So be mindful of that. They'll drain you of followers. Ask Tulsi. As fast as Tulsi gets followers on Twitter, they drain her followers just as fast. Despite the fact that she, at one point, I don't know if this is still true, but about halfway through the election, she had more organic Twitter interactions than any other politician, including Bernie Sanders. She had more organic interaction, despite being capped off at a certain amount of followers. And then people were being forcibly unfollowed from her account. Prominent Tulsi's followers were being unfollowed from her account. So they'll convince you, she only has 768,000 followers on Twitter. She can't be that popular. No, it's just they're deleting them as fast as she can get them. They're forcing people to unfollow as fast as she can get them. Or else you don't get that many interactions on your videos and tweets unless you do have that many. They also force people to unretweet and unlike shit from Tulsi too. But they do the same thing for Bernie sometimes too. So it's just that Bernie just caught fire so fast back then. Understand, Saudi Arabia is in charge of Twitter now. It isn't Jack Dorsey. So that's something you have to watch out for. Obviously, Facebook is just the worst. So ignore Facebook, ignore social media. You have to go out. That's why you have to kind of go out and you have to be diligent and vigilant. And where you vet your sources, and don't just accept, oh man, look at this comment section of everybody attacking Bernie or everybody attacking Tulsi. Yeah, that's because the people who attack them regularly are the ones seeing that post because of who they're attacking. Don't get too discouraged by stuff like that. It's not real life most of the time. You have posts where a lot of people are defending Hillary Clinton, but real life proved to be a lot different, don't you think? I think so. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Kathy Lloyd, thanks for the super chat. Appreciate it. So, ladies and gentlemen, the different ways it can be rigged: media, debates, social media, provisional ballots. I cannot stress that enough. Do not take a provisional ballot. Do not take a provisional ballot. Do not take it. If they try and give you one, put your phone on record. I guarantee you they'll figure it out. They'll figure it out. Edwin Medina, thanks for the super chat. All my bookmark lights have been erased. All the likes. I believe it. 100%. 100% believe it. So provisional ballots, they'll switch your registration. So if you're especially in a closed primary state, check your registration once a week. And when you get closer to the election, right, for your state, or the cutoff date, I should say, more specifically. So I think in New York it's October. So I think y'all actually already passed. Yeah, I think the primary registration date for New York has already passed. But so if you did make it, once you get closer to your election, check about a month out. Check every single day. I know it sounds tedious. I know it sounds compulsive, but do it. Seriously. Floridians. Do I gotta tell y'all, Floridians in the home of Debbie Weiserman Schultz, I gotta tell you, gotta check your registration every single day. Boy, they might destroy your ballots anyway. I can't even lie. Look at what Brenda Snipes did to Tim Canova's ballots. Destroyed them. And so once again, I always say this is the part that people don't think. People think that they were destroying them necessarily because of Tim Canova and Tim Canova alone, but it could have also revealed, because if you voted for Tim Canova, who did you vote for also? Bernie Sanders, almost 98% guaranteed. So it wasn't just Debbie Weiserman Schultz cheating that they would have exposed if Brenda Snipes did not destroy those ballots. But you're talking about hundreds of thousands of ballots plus that probably would have went in favor of Bernie Sanders that they counted towards Hillary Clinton. So make sure you're checking your registration every day. Caucus goers, hey, look, man, Godspeed. That's why I'm not even really I'm not putting too much stock into Iowa caucus, because I'm trying to get the momentum after Iowa caucus, because I know for a fact they're trying to rig that thing, and there's very little we can do about it. We have to basically put our faith in the people of Iowa, that they'll stand up to it. And a lot of people did, by the way, in the Iowa caucus the first time. And I think those are all the different ways they'll do it. So you have to be vigilant. You have to be willing to call it out. You don't be bullied out of saying, if there's rigging, call that shit. Because odds are, you're right. They're wrong. Anybody saying, oh, you don't say it's rigged? I remember I saw Sam Cedar. And I know I'm not a fan of Michael Brooks, but I was actually very impressed by him. Because Sam Cedar said, because they were talking about the fact that the whole Russiagate narrative is bullshit. And Sam was like, oh, if that's BS, what the next thing you're going to tell me is that the primary is rigged against Bernie Sanders? And Michael Brooks was like, what are some pretty substantive evidence that says, yeah, it was? I mean, and there's the fact that Donna Brazile, who was the acting chair of the DNC after Debbie Weiserman Schultz got fired, said it was rigged. And then Elizabeth Warren said it was rigged. And then Tom Perez says it was rigged. Come on, bro. Really? Oh, the superdelegates is also a way that they rig it, but it's not going to have as much of an effect on the primary this time around. It's going to have a huge effect, however, on the vice presidential pick, which is a different discussion we'll have for a different day. All right? So just make sure you're staying vigilant. Don't let anyone tell you. If you feel like there's something fishy going on, DM me. I usually have people all over the country on the ground paying attention to this stuff. And because our audience is just amazing. They're amazing. And so, DM me. Be vigilant. Don't forget, if you see something, if you're a Tulsi supporter, tag Tulsi, tag me, tag Vern Devon, tag Abe, because they're paying attention to that stuff this election. So, all right. I hope that answered your question. If you have a Q Bounty question that you want to ask, if you have a super chat, or if you want a video dedicated to your super chat, go to qbounty.com, QBOUNTI.com/Nico, or you can click on the link in the description below and we can dedicate a video to your super chat. All right. With that being said, ladies and gentlemen, thank you all so much for tuning in. And always remember, more than anything else, find your balance. Peace. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and hit that notification bell if you like that segment of Mikasa Sukasa. Of course, if YouTube is giving you trouble, as it always does, you can download the Rockfin app and follow us there. Also, if you want to continue to help our show grow, you can help us reach our goal of 500 patrons on Patreon and donate as little as $1. Really, anything helps. Other than that, always remember, people, more than anything else, find your balance. Peace.